What was your finest moment of revenge? When I was 11 years old, I was bullied by a 12-year-old boy. He would steal things from my lunch every day. I got sick of it and decided to do something about it. One day, I brought a super hot pepper in my lunch and pretended to be really excited about it. Sure enough, the boy comes over, snatches it from my hand and pops it in his mouth. He practically exploded in pain, writhing around the floor, unable to handle the heat. I calmly looked at him and told him that drinking a nice glass of cold water would help immensely. He did so. This promptly magnified the pain 100x. He never stole food from me again. I regret nothing. Driving to drop someone off, my radar detector went off. Saw a cop sitting in a parking lot. Dropped off my friend and headed back. The whole way some as is tailgating me. Speed limit's 40. I'm doing 45 and he's so close I can't see his headlights. We come up to a traffic circle and he tries to pass me on the right. I sped up and he kept trying. We hit about 80-90 with him on the shoulder. Come up to the crest of a hill and I know the cop is right on the other side. I hit the brakes and he flew up over the hill. Had to be doing 90 in a 40. I even stopped to let the cop out of the parking lot. Most satisfying thing ever. My first real boyfriend, we kissed instead of just holding hands, kissed another girl and dumped me for her when I was a freshman in high school. She had actively pursued him although she knew he had a girlfriend. So I blamed her rather than him. I know. Fast forward 4 years, I was a volleyball player throughout college. In the off season I played in a city women's league and a co-ed league as an outside hitter. My team played a new team with a familiar face. She didn't recognize me, different high schools. But I immediately recognized her. My team's setter kept giving me amazing sets and I kept slamming the ball over the net. Just waiting for my shot. Finally, she was in the back row and my setter set me up. I hit the ball and the boyfriend stealer stepped into the hit. It bounced off her foot and went straight up into her face and broke her nose. This is more petty revenge, but yeah. A few years back, my 15-year-old cousin was staying over at my place which I shared with my boyfriend at the time. Her parents were on vacation in Cuba for a few weeks. While she was with us, we had to make all of her food. She couldn't cook and waited for me or my boyfriend to come home. Otherwise she would only eat chips or popcorn. She wouldn't even make a sandwich. One day, she updated her Facebook status which was a whiny complaint about how bored she was, she had free reign to go out, and how weird I was. I guess she forgot I have her on Facebook. It really pissed me off since I made all of her meals and tried my best to keep her company. That night, when I was making her a turkey sandwich, I took my revenge. I used the end slices of the bread loaf to build the sandwich in the bitter white part of a romaine lettuce leaf. I also put too much mayo on it. She ate that sandwich, and she had a look of annoyance on her face. But there was nothing she could do. Itch. This may seem small, but it was the most satisfying thing I have ever done. When I was in the 7th grade I sat behind a jerk who hated me and enjoyed being annoying. Every single goddamn day he would lean back in his chair and hit the front of my desk. Over and ever again. If I was trying to write something, he would do it even harder. So one day I decided enough was enough. And in the middle of a lesson he started again. So I waited. And right as he was leaning his chair back fast, trying to knock my desk hard, I pulled it back. Without my desk behind him his chair tipped right over and he hit the ground hard. I can still clearly remember him whispering "Yuich" beneath the laughter of the whole class and the teacher yelling at him to get up. The look on his face was a mixture of shock, embarrassment and pure rage as he looked up at me from the floor. Bastard never ducked with me again. When I was 12 years old, a kid beat me up at a birthday party for reasons unknown. 4 years later, the kid is a pitcher, and a very good one at that, for his school in the playoffs. I was playing for the other team. After going 0-3 to start the game, I hit a walk-off home run off of him to advance to the next round. Kid actually started crying on the mound. I don't think I've ever had a bigger smile than I did in that moment. Still have the ball in my apartment at college. My ex-fiancée walked out on me a week before the wedding. I later married her, a great girl. Became much wealthier. And about to have a kid. Meanwhile, I heard she's still living in her parents' apartment and is actively looking online for dates. The best revenge is living a better life without her. And that is what I did. Recently posted this. But, long story short. And kid I was friends with hit me in the gonads 3 times in one night. He then called me a wee baby and got in my face. He tried to make me flinch by half swinging at me. I didn't flinch. But instead headbutted him with everything I had. Crushed his nose. Blood pouring out of his face. I had a tiny cut in the center of my forehead. With one line of blood running down my face. I looked ducking psychotic. But badass. Also. Duck you for that, David. When I was a kid, probably 4 or 5 years old, I was watching Dumbo with my neighbor. The elephants on Parade Part was scary as all hell to me back then. And I peed my pants. My neighbor told everyone in my pre-K class and would not stop calling me the pants peer for weeks. Finally, one day I slept over at her house and took a pair of her pants out her closet. Put them on. And peed in them. I woke her up to show her. And that's the story of how I became the tit-time pants peer. TLDR got revenge on a girl by putting her pants on and peeing in them. I ground up laxatives and tainted all my kitchen fridge food with it to figure out which of my 7 roommates was eating all my food. While I survived off a secret stash in my mini fridge. I found out who did it. Very quickly. Not me but my mom. When I was 9, I'm 26 now, my parents went through a really rough divorce. Long story short. My dad had a very public and long-term affair with a prominent public figure in our area. We'll call her Debbie, naturally. My mother was humiliated. But back then she was quite meek. Unassuming. And not at all vindictive. She only did one thing to the woman that broke up my family. My mom is a nurse and about 6 months after the divorce she was attending a medical conference our area. She saw that one of the panelists was the woman who slept with her husband. Shocked. But always in control. My mother calmly walked to the very front of the room and sat down silently in front of Debbie. Now, Debbie had been a family friend for over a decade. So my mom was intimately familiar with her upbringing and unfortunate issues. Remembering that she was an English Lit major in undergrad. My mom took out a red Sharpie and drew a very large A on the notebook that she brought to the conference. She turned it around and faced it directly at Debbie. Never saying a word. Debbie was visibly agitated. And when it came time for her to speak, something amazing happened. She started ticking. You see, my mother also knew that Debbie had a condition that went under immense stress. Despite significant speech therapy and experience in public speaking, she began to twitch and stutter. She twitched so much it impaired her speech. And she had to rush her portion. When she ended, my mother calmly shut her notebook, smiled at the woman, and walked out of the room. She never spoke a word. That was the last they saw of each other. TLDR, read it. My mom's a badass. I closed on selling my house but the buyers were real holes. Insane demands and stupid crap. I was fed up, so on move out day I bought a couple wasp traps and put the attractant into a hole in the garage drywall. Duckers. My college roommate had a sketchy friend he would invite over. My textbook was stolen the weekend before my final. I went to the bookstore and found the book. I had noticards that I used as bookmarks still in the book. I texted my roommate's friend and made up a story that the bookstore was going to press charges unless he gave the money back. He confessed over the phone and told me to meet him at his place to get the money. When I got there he was smoking a bong. After taking the money I poured the bong over his head and told him to never come to my place ever again. Back in the summer of '09 me and my girlfriend were going pretty strong. Anyway, I found out she was ducking this guy on the side. She admitted it and said she was sorry and I dumped her. Anyway, I didn't know the guy but had remembered his name. One night at a party a few months later I got introduced to a guy I thought was him. I slyly worked out it was him. I'm not a guy to hold a grudge generally, but this was something else. I didn't want to do anything to him, but when I walked into a bedroom to take a phone call and there he was passed out drunk on the bed. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I had to get an opportunity to pass it up. I was pretty drunk at the time, but the first thing I thought of was to take a dump on him. I passed it off as a stupid idea, but I couldn't think of anything else, so I went with it. Not a day goes by I don't think about it. Needless to say, I haven't told anyone about this in real life. I'm not sure, but his say vengeance was a dish best served cheaty. When I was 16, I was heartbroken by a girl who basically decided to duck someone else after we were in love, and I just used it as motivation to eat better and lose weight. I saw her a couple years later and it looks like she gained as much as I lost, 80 pounds. Felt so good. There was a guy in high school who was a completist to me. For a couple years, I decided to exact revenge via magazine. I went to the school library and pulled subscription cards out of every female magazine I could get my hands on. And a few strange ones like Psychology Today and Architectural Digest. And filled out cards in his name. With his address. And checked bill me later. I overheard him complaining a few months later how he kept getting all these magazines he never ordered and it was getting irritating. Score. Late to the party. But here's mine. In high school, one of my best friends started dating my ex-boyfriend the day after we broke up. Which happened to be my 16th birthday. So then and there I decided to ruin her sweet 16. I just wasn't sure how. Fast forward 3 months. She planned an extravagant birthday party and played hockey from school the Friday before the big party to prepare. This was my opportunity. I told everyone at school that she had gotten the flu. And was postponing the party, hence why she wasn't in school. We were neighbors, so everyone bought it. The next day she got all dolled up. Arrived at her sweet 16 party in a large rented ballroom only to spend the entire party with her mom and little sister. Not one person showed up. Looking back, it was terrible and mean. But her 16-year-old girl, I felt she broke sacred girl code. And that's never okay. TLDR. A birthday for a birthday leaves the whole world sad. Edit. Great. My highest comment is about me being a total itch. Ex cheated on me. Moved out, but moved out slowly over time. Which meant I still lived with a lot of her stuff. Some of her clothes were left in the closet. I cut teeny tiny corners off of every sleeve. But barely enough to be noticeable. You'd have to think you were going insane to notice it, but then again. Over time, each sleeve did look somewhat off. She eventually asked me about it months later. I denied everything. I regret nothing. There was the kid in JR. Hi, that was always in my sheet. Not a bully. But just 2 parts dickhead and 1 part itch. Constantly trolling me. Following me around talking sheet. I tried turning the other cheek. Being nice and sheet like that. But it just was not working. Fast forward to high school. We are both on the wrestling team. I'm like 1 weight class above him. So we have lots and lots of close contact, and he was still being a big dig. Double leg takedown. Scooped that sheet head up in the air and entered the mat with him. Coach got pissed and made me do extra cardio after practice. Felt really ducking good. Signed out of all devices on Netflix. That'll show her. Animal. Called out the teacher who told me I would fail her class and needed to deal with not succeeding in my valedictorian speech. Best suck it moment of my life. Joke's on you. She saw your potential but was concerned about your lack of motivation. So she said the exact thing that she thought would make you succeed. She played you like a puppet. This one comes to mind because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was out snowblowing the driveway one day. Some dude who is a friend of my sister's walks up to me and throws a snowball at me. He then gave that look like what are you gonna do about it, man? And laughed, putting his hands up as if to go on. Dude, do you not see this large snow moving device I am pushing around? Only took several seconds to completely coat him in snow. And the look of defeat on his face was glorious. In 4th grade gym I discovered heartbreak, revenge, and victory all in one class period. Moments before class had started, my boyfriend dumped me because I was too weird. There I sat in disbelief and sadness. And he just ran around like nothing had happened. We were put on opposite teams, only making the chasm between us greater. Now, I am possibly the worst person at sports, wiffle ball being no exception. I stepped up to the orange rubber plate, the bat heavy in my hands. The ex was pitching and called out to everyone in the outfield, "Don't worry about this one. She can't hit anything." I was embarrassed. I was heartbroken. Mostly, I was pissed. I said nothing, watching as he casually cocked back his arm. His eyes gleamed as the ball flew from his grip, careening towards me. I raised my bat and swung with all of my measly strength. The wiffle ball met my bat with a dull plastic whack. Next, the wiffle ball met the ex's gonads. Square on. I watched as he crumpled to the floor, a wailing heap. My team cheered for me as I ran around the bases, greeting me with high fives as I cleared home. It was beautiful. During our 100 multiple choice law exam, I wrote all my answers on the original exam page and colored in wrong answers on the Scantron sheet. The girl who copied me since day one thought she was going to pass this exam worth 30% of our final mark. She looked over and copied almost each of my Scantron answer, then guessed a few, handed it in, and left for the winter break. I erased all my old answers, put the correct answers in, handed it in, and left. I got 71/100 and barely managed to pass that class. I'll find out what she got on Tuesday when I maybe see her with the gum at my locker. When I was in 4th grade, I was pushed around a lot by a kid who thought he was hot shit. I told my parents. I told my teacher. They told the teacher and the principal. No avail. So, one day on the stairs he kicks the back of my shoe, making it pop off and fall. I turn and punch him in the stomach. He keeled over and rolled, fell down about 5-6 stairs to the next landing. I didn't even get in trouble. And even though he is still an asshole, he never dared to touch me again. So my grandfather was driving and an obviously drunk man threw a rock and shattered his windshield. My grandfather talked to him and told him, "If you give me your real number, I'll only have you pay for half of the windshield or we can figure something out." The guy turned out to give him a fake number. A year later, my grandfather picks up a guy from Park and Ride, carpooling. He happens to be the man that shattered his windshield. They're driving on the freeway and the guy doesn't recognize him. He's being rude and talking on his phone. My grandpa asks to see his phone and throws it out the window. The guy freaks out and my grandpa goes, "Remember me?" He then made him get out of the car.